You would think though at some point, more money would be coming in than they would be out.
Well, I agree with that, but that's, when you get to that level of detail, we would have to have the ability
Okay,
to articulate why.
ready?
Ready.
Call to order the March 21st, 2013 Police Pension Relief Fund Board meeting. Dispense with the roll call, the form is duly noted. The media was notified as appropriate. First item on the agenda is a report from our financial consultant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. We have the February report in front of you. As customary, we'll go over what occurred in the month of February and kind of where we stand through yesterday's close. If you open your book, you'll see your top right subset of numbers. Excuse me, that total account value for the period was $42,659,417. Add in just a shade over $23,000 accrued income, brings you to $42,682,593. Return-wise for the month of February, up 57 basis points, really continuing some of the theme that we saw in January. A lot of positive momentum, still really coming off from some of the fiscal cliff issues, primarily as we discussed last time. The change in the tax rate for dividends didn't increase as dramatically as expected. That caused a nice momentum rally into anything that had a little dividend component to it. So again, February proved to be pretty strong. You had a lot of strong corporate earnings continue to come out. You're seeing some guidance, some corporations look good, but that's kind of where they're supposed to be right now. If you think about all the cuts they've made throughout the years, they're very thin now. Over the last 4 or 5 years, if there's an expense a corporation could cut, they've cut it. So what we're not typically seeing right now is an initiative for those guys to now turn the corner and say, let's either put some more expenditures out there, but hopefully you're going to put that expenditures out there in the form of human capital by going out and hiring. You're not seeing any changes really in the unemployment rate. It's steady. I guess that can be considered a good thing, but it's still above historical norms. Europe continues to be a little bit of a dicey scenario. After the Olympics, we kind of smoothed things out. It wasn't on the forefront. They kind of moved enough chess pieces around to where it wasn't connected enough to have a substantial fallout. People felt a little safer with the European situation. This recent event with Cyprus, Cyprus I think only has like 1 million people living in the country, but they have received some bailout money that kind of get tied to Greece. One thing that's being kicked around right now is taking 10% of all deposits. So if you have money in your bank account, the government's just going to take 10% of it, and that's how they're going to pay for this bailout. Obviously, that sets a dangerous precedent. It scares people in Europe. If the ECB is giving the blessing, who's next? Is that going to happen to Italy? Is that going to happen to other countries? So that's certainly something to watch. I think they've come out with the final vote on that today. So that's where all eyes on the market are going to be. Market's selling off a little bit this morning in anticipation of that. But all the way around, March has continued to be a pretty solid month. If we close out, today's the 21st, we close out these next couple trading days, I guess about 10 trading days left in the month, it'll just be a really solid quarter to start off 2013. Year to date after February 28th, the plan was up 3.25%. Look at the bottom number in that same middle column. The blended index comparison was up 2.86%. Kind of inside that numbers, the S&P is more or less what we compare ourselves with on the equity exposure at 6.35%. So we're getting right about half that return, which is it should be for our allocation. As of last night, continued appreciation. Again, we've had a few sell-offs happen in March, but we're kind of back to par. You're up 4.52% as of the close of business yesterday. So again, tracking in the right direction. As we said, if we book this quarter in, as it stands now, it'll be one of the better quarters we've had in a good couple of years. So everything looking positive right now. Since inception numbers, 693 versus 551, and then total drop balance. We didn't have it in time for this.
We did not. I don't know that. Is Kathy, did we get a drop balance finally?
Yeah, for police, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we had not received it. That's okay. I don't think there was any major change though.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, it was
There
pretty
wasn't a
equal.
lot of
You might want to send that to the members.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just send them a number because we didn't get that when we did the report.
So 693 for the inception numbers. Another note that Alex, Larry, and I have been paying particular attention to is the fixed income market. You've seen some volatility take place in the 10-year. We ticked above 2% for a while earlier this month. This recent Cyprus news really kind of slammed rates back down. We're at a 193 this morning. So the way we continue to position fixed income will be critical going forward. One thing you can kind of say about the quantitative easing program is that it has contributed to a lot of run into the market rally because it's forcing people, although they won't admit this, to take on a little additional risk to go achieve some yield out there. Anytime you're earning close to 0% in money market rates, you can't do that forever. You certainly can't do that in the pension landscape. So you're going out into the markets and finding additional ways to have some yield into a portfolio. If you think about the S&P 500, yields about 2.2%, and the 10-year Treasury is 1.93. So the risk reward is getting to a spot where people are taking that additional volatility to get a couple percentage points in yield and have that potential for appreciation. We'll continue to look at the Goldman Sachs Strategic Income Fund. It's up 2.37% year to date, where you see some other fixed income instruments underwater for the year to date. High yield has done better than investment grade credit. I would tend to watch out for that if high yield gets to an area where it gets a little rich. It certainly feels like it's trending in that direction now. Government securities, they're probably off a little bit, a few basis points on the year, just because you've had some of that sell-off take place. But you're continuing to see things tied to credit improve. Just anytime the rates are going to go up, they're tied to that. So you're going to have some mark-to-market adjustments on that particular instrument. Let's go ahead and flip pages to the pie chart. As you can see, as of February 28, 2013, the equity allocation in the portfolio is 44.45%. You're starting at 12 o'clock on the pie chart. You see cash at 296. Growth 1524 at 2 o'clock versus going over to 11 o'clock at value at 941. We have made some changes. Alex may want to talk about that in a moment. Inside your growth component, you can see the large cap still being the dominant player for us, 610 allocation versus mid at 318 and small at 596. Continuing to go around the clock, let's go ahead and drop down to 6 o'clock. Sector REIT, oil and gas, again, continuing to do really, really well this year, primarily, again, tied to the fiscal cliff resolution that didn't allow the dividend tax rate to go up as scheduled into law. It only went up to 20%. So you've had a nice momentum into the MLP space, oil and gas, and the REIT sectors, again, because there's your higher yielding securities paying dividends. Even though technically an MLP is a distribution and not a dividend, it still was kind of anticipated that way or perceived that way by the street. So it did have some sell-off at the year end of 2012 and a really strong rally back. Some MLPs, your funds are up 10% year to date. Moving around the curve, or pie chart rather, the other 19.96, again, that consists of your alternative investments, real estate, which we'll have a quarterly update for that, I guess in April, probably May. Mezzanine, your Capital Point partners out of Houston, their audit should be completed in April. At that point, we'll invite them to come down, as is customary, to do an annual on-site meeting with the board. And Goldman, we don't have the February numbers in this report. We just got them yesterday. It shows about $11,000 profit for the month of February, so it is a positive month. However, it's not reflected into this report. Alex?
Let's look at the pie chart here real quickly so that everybody's kind of on the same page. We made some changes in some of the managers. It has no effect really on the allocation within the pie chart. We reduced our expense ratios considerably on 2 managers. We also moved some fixed income money from what we consider a little bit higher risk spectrum as rates have moved up a little bit in the first part of March into February. Now they've settled down. But everything that we did was to try to take some risk off the table, but obviously try to keep the same allocation. A couple things we did, and we had talked about this earlier. We sold the Columbia Small Cap Growth Fund. That was our small cap growth segment. It is up 8.88% year to date, but it had trailed badly in 2012. So it was time to take a little money off the table there. And basically what we did, we took the small cap growth and moved it to small cap value, which has underperformed small cap growth a little bit year to date. Also has given us a yield enhancement of about 1% from a yield standpoint. So we wanted to take a little bit out of the growth side, move it to value on the small cap, but we kept it within domestic equity. We also sold JP Morgan Large Cap Growth Fund, which has previously been a good performer, but it's trailed the index. It's up 4.46% year to date. The index is up 10 and some change, so you can see it's trailed a little bit. We had $500,000 in there, and we moved that basically to the rising dividend, Goldman Sachs Rising Dividend Growth Fund, which gives us a little bit more yield orientation, again, a little bit more of a defensive format. We've had a nice run in this equity market. We want to keep the equity exposure, but we want to take a little bit of the standard deviation and reduce it a little bit. So from an equity standpoint, that's kind of your segment that we made some changes in. JP Morgan Core Bond Fund, which I know that you probably remember, we've got a slight gain there. It's a little bit down this year, less than 0.1%. Obviously, fixed income's been a little difficult. We moved that to the Goldman Sachs High Yield Floating Rate Fund, which is our zero duration play. It's the senior loan play, yields about 4%. So that's kind of our first stance in trying to be more defensive on the fixed income side. And that was $1 million investment. We left about $65,000 in money market. So that was really our major changes in the portfolio that we put into place this week. All in all, I think, and we also added $500,000 to large cap growth, which came from the JP Morgan Large Cap Growth Fund. So all in all, we reduced our expenses. We got a little bit more conservative on the equity side after a huge run-up that we've seen in the first quarter. But we're still in the equity market. So if you look at your allocation, which is 44.5% in equity, we're probably at 44.2% in equity. We might have dropped it just a tad bit overall. We're very concerned, obviously, because we've had a nice run-up in the equity market. We've also had 4 years in a row where we've seen this in the first quarter and in the spring sell off. So we're attentive to that situation as we enter April and May, because that's not been a good time period. It may warrant some situations where we take some money off the table if we start seeing some pullback. Although this is a little different right now, and the economy is showing progressive steps as far as what we're seeing is a strengthening. It's not fast. It's not at a quick momentum stage, but it is in a slow process. Rising interest rates aren't always bad for the equity market as well. So as long as rates don't move up drastically in a quick pace, it could be beneficial to the equity market. But we're very careful right now. We've had a very good start to the year. Obviously, we have to watch exposure on this because, as we've talked about many times, the drop balance. There is a possibility, if things come into play, and especially from DC movements, that we could raise the equity balance a little bit, but we're pretty much at our tipping point as far as equity exposure. We got to be careful from the standpoint of the work that Jody's done and the communication that we've had from the actuary and the risk spectrum of this plan. But all in all, very good start to the year. Very pleased with that. But we still got a lot of indicators out there that we're watching very closely from that standpoint. Bo mentioned the Goldman Sachs Commodities Opportunity Fund. I think it's still a little early because we don't have inflation really ratcheting up yet. Doesn't look like we're going to see that anytime in the near future. But once the Fed starts pulling back their balance sheet, however they go to do that, either limiting purchases on a monthly basis, which is $85 billion a month, or they start selling some of their securities out of the balance sheet, which I really don't think they will in the near term, we'll see rates starting to move up. So that's what we're trying to stay ahead of at this point in time. Whether it's 2013 or 2014 event, that's what we're looking for at this point in time. Real estate, I have not gotten an indication yet, but I will tell you, based on what I'm seeing from some of the other real estate programs, I see a gain there. I don't know if it'll be a 3% level, probably more in the 1 to 2.5 level, but we'll just have to remain positive on that and see what Prudential has for us. Probably we'll start getting that number in the next couple of weeks from a verbal standpoint. Any questions?
Any questions, Alex or Buck? Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next item is approval of temporary meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes that were considered all around.
Moved and properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Kim?
On my recommendations for the model quadro, I headed the document out at the last meeting, but I brought copies in case anyone needs another one. Does anyone need, anyone else? Need a copy? Yeah. Oh, okay. I was impressed. I thought everyone had circled it. If I brought the copies back, I said, wow.
Is that copy, the one you're handing out, is that incorporating the changes in it? I think we just had a scratch through maybe.
Oh yeah, it's just a scratch through. It's not incorporating changes. I don't have this document electronically, so once you make your changes, I'll just have to get someone to retype the whole thing. Yeah, I just scan this in as a PDF and sort of, I don't really have a program that allows me to modify PDFs, so that's why you have that handwriting. But basically, the main change is on the last page, if you want to look at it. And this is just incorporating the language to really reflect what the board has decided, that all quadros will be treated as if the alternate payee predeceases the member, then those benefits would revert back to the member. And so instead of having what they have in this paragraph now, which I'm not even sure what that's supposed to mean, then I spelled it out. It said the alternate payee shall receive monthly benefits set forth in paragraph 2, that's on the other page, until the death of the alternate payee or the participating member, whichever one occurs first. The benefits payments shall cease upon the death of the participating member per the terms of the fund, and in the event the alternate payee predeceases the participating member, the monthly benefit payment will revert back to the participating member. I think that's about as clear as I can get it. Now, there are several places within the document it will refer to paying and through the life of the participating member, through the life of the, and it says that in, let's see, 1, 2, on the first page and the second. And so I think we should just take that language out because that's makes it unclear. Because, you know, if you read that, it says through the life of the participating member. It doesn't say through the life of the alternate payee. So that could be interpreted to mean she would continue, the alternate payee's life would not cause the payments to stop. The alternate payee's death would not cause the payments to stop. So I'd suggest taking that language out and just having just one paragraph to cover it. And I'd also take out that language about that if they predecease before they receive any benefits under the plan, then it would revert back, because I'm not even sure what scenario that's trying to cover. So,
Well, I wasn't either, but
but
they
apparently
seem to be pretty, just as long as it's not a problem. Let me ask you, to remove this language that repeatedly refers to through the life of the participating member, if that's taken out, does it somehow maybe inadvertently apply that it doesn't terminate upon the life of the member?
no, because here I said it terminates upon the death of the alternate payee or the participating member, whichever occurs first. In my new language, I say that it terminates. I think that what this is trying to say is they're trying to say how long she's going to receive payments. But by putting that in there, it makes it kind of confusing about when it ends. Does it end on upon her death or his death? And if you guys want it to always end, and you're like, you don't care who dies, you want it to stop, you know, or you want it to revert back. Her payments stop upon the death of either one. And I think that makes it confusing, but I really think that's in there. It was put in there, I think, just to indicate that she would continue receiving benefits month after month after month after month until he dies. But whoever wrote that wasn't anticipating that she could predecease him and that those benefits would stop.
Just as long, I mean, from my perspective, as long as you're certain that, that the intent, has always been the intent is clear. If the alternate pay, and I think it is now, the alternate payee predeceases the member, then it reverts to the member. If the member predeceases the alternate payee, everything stops in terms of the alternate payee.
And I think you're better just to have the one paragraph that states that and remove all the other references.
If you're certain of that, I'll make a motion to approve it as modified.
Is there a second?
I think it is mentioned.
It's been moved and probably second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for all your work on that. I know it was,
It's a long process.
Oh wait, are we taking this off the agenda? Yay!
Remove it. Okay, 10B.
Mr. Hensley asked that that stay on the agenda. I'm not really sure.
what's that?
The-
Revision of rules, policies, and procedures.
Okay, we received that this month. I'm assuming all board members received an updated copy incorporating the resolution change.
And then on C, I believe the board adopted that resolution.
We did.
So I think it's good.
So,
And this,
Okay.
this board already approved it.
so did y'all need to do anything? I know I forwarded you a copy of the resolution, so is it good?
Yeah, that closed the matter. Yeah, because we just needed that for the
Okay.
PRB's records.
So she can remarry now and we can move forward.
All the sheets.
So,
All right.
Right.
Kim, you have nothing on the agenda for next month, is that true?
I think that might be true.
We need to figure out something.
You will.
Well, you might, we need to talk about 11A, so.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I mean, yeah, okay.
I
Okay.
have that.
Okay, so Roger is not here, so we'll motion to table the report from the board lobbyist.
So,
Second.
Any further discussion, all those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
It's tabled, report of the funding committee.
Yes, we started at 8 o'clock this morning, and thank you, David, for coming.
Yes, ma'am.
We're still working on some papers, but according to David and the lobby, that we need to make a decision today on what we want to have looked at by the lobby actuary, because we have an April the 1st deadline on that to have it back by October, and it's not on the sliding scale. So at that point, the members can go ahead with what you all want to do.
I would make a motion to approve, well, to go ahead and order lot consolidation merger study using 3 different percentages for increase, a 2, 2.5, and a 3, all of them based on both a 15 as well as 25-year amortization.
I said.
So moving to Barbara second, discussion. I think I also remember that even with that motion, you would also do it based on no increase, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I just wanted, there's really 4 scenarios that we would get back.
We'll show what the board will receive in this case is they'll receive costs for the 2, 2.5, and 3% COLA with the 15-year and 25-year amortization, and then the same 15-year, 25-year amortization without a COLA.
Needs to be compounding codes, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, would it still be the same cost that's on that first sheet?
No, ma'am, it will not. I'll have to check with the actuaries when I get back to the office, and what I'll do is I'll email you
Okay.
with that number so that you'll have the revised valuation fee.
That's 4 areas, right?
So I saw the 7,300, so is it more?
It will be more because there's an additional COLA scenario that we'll have to run. What that number is, I don't know. I'll have to ask the actuaries.
So you all, instead of the 2 and 3, you wanted to add the 2.5?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But just out of curiosity here, why would we do it with no COLA when even a 2% is actually making the city over $1 million every year?
I think it's an automatic. I
Yes,
don't,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah, that's, LAFI just simply provides that because that's how the benefit structure currently is.
Didn't know
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with the understanding that we'll move forward, but the actual number will be different. Everyone's comfortable with that.
Number for different.
Cost.
The cost of the study.
And it's, yeah, of course, they have to have the year-end.
Yes, sir, the annual financial report, we'll need that from the pension fund as quickly as we can. That's the report that's due March 31, so we're coming up on that deadline. As soon as we have that, the valuation fee, then we can move forward with the consolidation valuation. Normally, it takes about 6 weeks to get the valuation back. As soon as it's done, I'll send it back to the board along with additional documents that if you decide to proceed, you'll have those documents to do so.
But won't you need the approved minutes also?
Now, in this case, we do not.
Okay.
No.
There's one request that I asked in the meeting was that we use the actual property tax figures that are projected out in the county. That's just what the true figures used that we have.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, the consolidation study that Governor Walter Smith does will not factor in the revenue side, which that Lee referenced. That will be a process for this board along with
Your finance staff, that's
Finance
correct.
staff.
Yeah, the valuation from LAFI's actuaries will simply provide the city what the actual employer contribution costs will be to consolidate the plan.
That would come from our staff. wouldn't it?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. We did vote, didn't we? Or did we? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, we need to table the financial report for February. Motion. Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
And report on change of membership status, we have 2.
Yes, that's on number 8. Tab 8.
End of the area review.
make a motion to approve the retirement applications of Arthur Nugent effective April the 1st. Amount of $2,228.58, and Charles Spear effective May the 11th, amount of $2697.25.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. James, website?
Yes, sir. We're at about 19,000 hits and still climbing. If anybody has anything that they need me to put on the website, any updates, any information, just let me know. Email it to me and I'll get it uploaded.
All right. Report on Ms. Sanderson.
I went to the Northridge Healthcare Rehabilitation Center and met with Beverly Brooks. She's the office manager for the center there, and also patient coordinator Donna Huffman. We met with Sanderson, and she was obviously suffering from Alzheimer's, and she wasn't real coherent. I did obtain her signature on the form, and I forwarded it to Kathy. It's my understanding that her checks are being used to provide care for her at the facility, and they requested that they be forwarded to her at the address of the facility, and they would make sure they got positive, and she received her report.
Kathy, how do you do address changes like that? Do you have a form or something that people make requests on? Or do you just take a request like that?
No, we requested in writing,
Okay.
but in this case, we know she's in the nursing home, and I'm not for sure what address we're using for her. But my concern is, if she was not in the nursing home, since we have December and January's check, if she did not go to the nursing home until the 1st of February, they would not be entitled to her December and January check.
Do we know when she went?
Well, I mean, they're not entitled to her check either way. I mean, it's gonna go to her. And I assume they had to have someone there with power of attorney, or someone has to have the authority to cash it, right? So you're just saying change her mailing address
Yes, to the nursing home.
from there to the nursing home.
Yeah, I would have to have, and like I said, I don't know what the address is right now, but if it's not the nursing home, then, and this is the problem we're running into, I would have to have her consent to change her address.
Okay.
In the case of her not being able to do that, I would need whoever has power of attorney over her. Nobody has power of attorney. It's a family matter going on. Now, I can mail them to the address that I have on file, and who gets them, I don't know.
Well, if you want me to look into it at this point, we had another similar situation with our city retiree, and before it was all resolved, there was a guardian appointed at the State Department of Human Services for her that was taking care of, they ended up taking care of her estate, and et cetera. So I'm sure the nursing home knows how to get that if they need that. I'm sure this is not the first time they've run into it. And I'll contact the nursing home and see what they can do about making sure she gets someone appointed to represent her, and then they can get whatever they need, and we'll get the check taken care of that way. Is that good? Okay.
Can you also find out when she went to the nursing home?
I can try. I don't know under HIPAA how much information they'll give me, because, her medical information will be private, and I don't have any authority. I mean, I can just generally find out what is their procedure for.
Yeah,
taking
you
care of
indicated that, that had been being used to pay her nursing home.
Right.
Yeah, so, obviously she's been there.
She's been there a few months,
Yeah,
but
her Medicare and her pension check were being used to provide her care there.
So you want me to put this on your agenda?
Yeah, put it on there for me. I'll call and see what I can get. I can look at the nursing home.
But I'd like to
Not
get
her
this
family.
figured out so she can get her
Yeah.
money and,
I could mail it to the address we have on file.
He
I
said
would wait,
North Ridge.
I think,
I'll put it in there.
Okay.
you might just want to get it
Since
to-
Kevin's got the name of the people.
Well, that's interesting, she has signed her document now.
And so there, normally at this stage, we would release the checks now that she signed the documents.
Yeah, I would say until you get a form in writing from her, changing her address, which is your procedure, is that correct? Then continue using her other address.
Isn't that what
Continue
she
to use
signed
the
to
address
do?
you have on.
Hmm?
Isn't that what she said?
No, she signed the affidavit.
Just saying.
Well, how much, first of all, we know that she's in a nursing home, we know that she's been there. We know that where the check was being mailed, or at least other family members have not been cooperative in providing information or following up with us concerning information in the past, why would we, with us knowing she's in a nursing home now, why would we go ahead and send a check to wherever for whomever to get?
Because I don't have any authority to change that address, and she hasn't changed it, and you can't just go on the word of some worker at the nursing home that her address needs to be changed. And, you know, you can assume that money is what pays for that, but I have no idea what her assets are. She might have other income, other sources coming in, other payments. I don't know. I'm just saying until to protect us, until we're given something in writing or someone with some authority, then they will, we have to do what we have on file.
On
She had
file-
signed anything?
On file, we have a Bryant address, and if I'm not mistaken, that's her granddaughter that is trying to get guardianship of her, that's fighting with a family member out of state. But we have the Bryant address, not the nursing home.
What, maybe,
You want to just hold it for another month until I
yeah,
can figure out
that's
something?
probably the best
Okay,
thing to do.
I'll do that.
And, yeah, because, let's do that.
Put that on the agenda.
All right, RFQ process for the attorney.
Okay. Here's a draft of the RFQ. This is basically the same thing that was used in the last go round. And while I'm passing out, I can give this. This is also a list of the municipal bond attorneys that this RFQ was sent to the last time. Of course, you know how law firms change so much, so we don't know if they're all still in the same name, but I can just take that.
You said municipal bond attorneys?
Mhm.
Well, that's not what we need, is it?
Well, that's just the list they used on who they mailed it to the last time. I mean, that's not gonna limit, I mean, anyone can, it'll still be published and anyone can apply, but, that's what Jerry Paul gave me is who they provided this notice to the last time. And we can talk about that in a minute. As far as the bid, this RFQ process, it said that you were looking for a 5-year arrangement. Do you still want something for 5 years?
Two would be plenty.
2? Okay.
Even if that would be, hopefully we don't need them that long.
And I changed the previous language that said they would attend all the meetings so that they would only attend meetings upon the request of the board. And then I added that they provide legal counsel to the board and pension office personnel in matters that the Little Rock Office of the City Attorney cannot provide representation as determined by the board. So it would be in your discretion when you needed to. There's a blank for the date, because I'm not sure when it gets to Jerry Paul, how long that takes. Then there's just a section, this would go through the RFQ process, so the city manager would appoint a selection committee. I think that has a minimum of 3 for a selection committee. And then that selection committee would meet and review the proposals that you receive and determine who you think is the most qualified based on the criteria set out here. And then after you determine who's the most qualified, you would contact them. You can interview them if you want to. Then you would contact them and your most qualified person for selection first, and negotiate a price with them. And if you can't come to a price you can agree upon, then you go to your next most qualified person and attempt to negotiate a price with them. There will be no prices in the initial information that you receive.
are we, contemplating, we're doing an RFQ process, but are we contemplating having a firm, that is available to the fund and, we're gonna negotiate an hourly sort of rate for, in other words, it's $200 an hour or whatever, but, is that where we're thinking we're going, or are we going to, and I think this really, will determine what type of proposals, and if we get any, are we gonna say we're retaining a firm and we're gonna pay a retainer, probably on a monthly basis, and then have an hourly type of agreement? Because I can imagine you're the only attorney in here, but, you know, we get these proposals in and we say, well, we want to enter into a contract with you, but we might call you once a year, we might not. You know, I just don't know who's, the type of firm we would want, or lawyer we want is just going to, say, I agree to come in when needed. And so I just throw that out for.
And can I throw in a third option? I know this is a little different than what y'all are used to doing, but, and help me with this because I'm not as familiar with how you guys in the city do the RFQs. But like for Public Works, they do an RFQ, and then based on that, they maintain a list of qualified firms through this process. And then when they need to hire, it's like say an engineer, they have a list of qualified engineers. And then when they need to hire an engineer, they can just convene their selection committee and then pick someone from that list based on the criteria, what they're needing. And you can go through the same process of looking at what you need, but you're not having to put the notice out that you're having all firms respond in the 10 days in there on that. And isn't that how it works for Public Works and some of those?
We have, these are called annual purchasing agreements, where we put out a RFQ and we qualify, 6 firms, and if we need, as Kim said, if we need an engineer on a particular project, we can go to any of those 6. They usually just go down the list, That is one way. I don't think we get multiple firms, say, it'd be interesting to see how that would.
Well, because I could see, the firm use of that would maybe determine if you have a tax question, you might would select one firm as opposed to say you've got a issue with a bond. I don't know if you have bond. I don't know what you have for funds. Something more of a financial end. You might pick a different firm, or say if it's a criminal matter.
I've got another thought here. In light of the motion that was just passed, considering consolidation, I'm not sure we need to go down this path at this point.
I kind of agree with you, but it might be just a waste of time.
Yeah.
At this point. I would kind of like to table this till we get this consolidation issue resolved. And that won't be very far off, according to October.
I think that's
the time we do our list, and this may be a waste of time. So I propose that we table this until October.
I'll second.
Does that mean I stay on the agenda until October now?
Okay, it's moved and proper second to table this to the October meeting. All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Unless needed prior to that for
Well,
whatever
I don't
reason.
see that now. We got Kim, she's a very qualified lady.
And we have some, I have some pretty broad powers to be able to bring on somebody if there's an emergency type issue that needs to be resolved. So I think
Just don't want to keep it to them being able to.
Would, pretty much the same
Yeah, it
reasoning
would be, yeah,
hold true on B.
I agree,
Hold on, B2, Michael?
I did.
We need to make a motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion.
That's like,
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have no other members of the fund present. Other business update on death benefit form.
That is what the lobbyist, Mr. Smith, is working on, the legislation to correct that. So I think that needs to be tabled as well.
Is there a motion?
what's he, okay.
What's he working on?
No, he's working on, language in the death benefit, statute. Now, the form, I think,
Is the assignment of benefits
right,
Funeral and
to who you want, either the state paid or whoever, the form to be sent out to each of the
But I think,
members.
I think he's working in the legislative session, they said he should file a shell bill, and he was working on it. He hoped to be here today, but I guess something has came up. We table it till next month.
I s-
Roger.
table he'll be here next time.
Yeah, she'll
It's
do
kind of
it
two
later.
different things, but his change does have something to do with the language as it relates to where the benefit goes. But at any rate, we do still need the benefit form that we had discussed signed. Now, I don't guess it would hurt to put it off another month. If he gets back and explains exactly what he's doing, I don't know.
But we do need to update that form. One was mailed out to a retiree, and he gave a beneficiary to pay it to. But all there is a name. So if he was to pass right now, I'd have no way to get a hold of her. So we're gonna need to revise that form some with like a address and phone number, and at that time, we're gonna need a social security number because she will receive a 1099 on it.
Well, don't we need to, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we've been talking
Can I
about doing
review
for a
that
few
form?
months, isn't it?
Okay.
Well,
You want me to review it?
uh,
Okay. So I don't know if I've seen, okay, I'll review it.
I know I have one on file
Okay.
that somebody's turned in.
Man, did I just put myself on here 3 times?
Good job.
Back up.
Put a nomination.
Okay, any other business?
We need to make a motion on that table, that form.
Yes, there's a motion.
Okay.
Second.
I'll say.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Motion
I'll
carries.
make motion to adjourn.
I'll second on that. That's a quick meeting.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.